Um, First of all, thank you for agreeing to have this interview with us. Maybe for starters, you could introduce yourself and tell us how you discovered and developed your passion for.
So I'm Anna from Sollazzo Ensemble. It's an ensemble which was founded 6 years ago now. And myself, I have been always interested in this repertoire. So the late medieval especially, and the first Renaissance. I've started to be interested in it as a kid because my father was involved in this music at that time. And I just adopted it as my main language. So for me, it's one of the the default repertoire to do. It's my daily bread. And with Sollazzo, we have been playing a lot of Trecento music, Ars Nova, Ars Subtilior, and the Franco-Flemish repertoire as well, the first generation, first and second. And in a way, there's this bridge, these two categories. So it's medieval and Renaissance, but for me, it's one, there's enough common points to make it as one thing, something that you can dedicate to.
And maybe for the people listening, could you describe the Sollazzo Ensemble, the people who are playing in it?
So Sollazzo was for a long time a fixed ensemble with only 6 people, and now we are opening to different instruments, different voices, different team. And also this was a little bit triggered by this project with the Leuven Chansonnier, because it's so challenging to record or like to interpret 50 pieces. It's quite a mountain, and if you want to do it in the way that is ideal for me, which is systematically applying an emotional link to it, so not just playing, but adopting the piece and make it your own, like an actor would do with a role. Then yeah, you just cannot do it with only a couple of singers. You need to have different personalities, different voices. So it's a little bit like proposing a movie to an actor, and you have to find the right pieces for the right singers. And in the case of this Leuven Chansonnier, there's like a lot of different, it's almost always about love, like movies, but there's a lot of different approaches to it. There are a lot of different characters, and so we've organized a little bit this repertoire with different singers.
Yes, and so this Chansonnier was founded in 2014, I think. How did you come into contact with the Alamir Foundation and the Leuven Chansonnier?
So we've worked with this repertoire before. We had a program about Joan de Made, which was roughly the same period. We had different programs also with Franco-Flemish about Dufay and Benchois, so a bit earlier music. And I think that's how they contacted us. We were incredibly honored by this, because back then we were a very young ensemble, and it was just an amazing opportunity for us, because in our generation, it's nearly everything was done, discovered, and studied, or at least you can find everything almost. And when we heard that there was these 12 pieces that no one performed before, it was like a treasure for us. It was amazing because it gave us this little feeling, a little taste, like interpreting the first time a piece. like the first pioneers, and this is something that we can only fantasize about, and this is of course completely different than the people that started with early music like many years ago, but we had this little taste of, wow, this is the first time that it's done, and it's us, what are we going to do with this? And it was really exciting.
I think lots of the students can sort of relate to that feeling, especially the ones interested in the early music, also because it's very close to our university now. What was it like to collaborate with the musicologists of the foundation, and did you have much to say in the artistic project of recording and performing the chansonnier?
So it's quite an interesting thing, because since it's so newly discovered, the artistic research in a way, or the thing that we do, how we dive into music, and their path is not consequent, but it's at the same time. So for instance, I think it was 10 days ago, there was this article which was published about, and it mentioned some pieces that we were recording that same day. and then I read it afterwards, because we were already recording, so I was like, okay, if there's something key in this article, it's too late. And then it was such an adrenaline shoot to look into it. And I have to say that it's very exciting, because yes, it feeds each other. You have this music, and at the same time, you know that something is happening in some offices, and that they're writing and studying it. And I think it's going to be a very interesting and challenging thing until the end of the project.
Mm-hmm. Could you talk us through the process of discovering this music, and what have been some of your biggest obstacles or challenges there?
Discovering the music, you mean the unica, or
just the chansonnier, the pieces you recorded?
Yes. So at the beginning, we were meant to do not a full recording of the full chansonnier. We were meant to do just one CD. So I picked a program, and I was really convinced that I picked the best pieces back in 2016, I think, 17. And then we got this offer of doing the whole chansonnier, and I have to say I doubted a little bit, because it's just a huge amount of music, and also the forms of this music are quite repetitive. So you have a lot of rondeau forms. So you have A B A A A B A B. The texts are coming back. And then you think, okay, this is actually the forms that we always do, but how to do 45 of those, or how to organize the tension and the programs with this factor. And then what we found was that these forms are actually a quite natural architecture, and it really helped to organize the programs in different ways. And also we could find some pieces are linked to each other, linked in the texts. I spoke before about how it's similar to an actor work for the singers. And if you put different pieces that's where you can feel that the character of the speaker has some common points, you can create quite a nice architecture. So for instance, so the first CD, the one that is available already, has this kind of different characters, and it's ended up being a very melancholical program, very, very deep and melancholical thing. And for the second, I chose, which is not released yet, I chose to have only one man and one woman singing, a little bit as the classical courtly love dialogue. And yes, it's the profiles of these people were like a very naive girl figure, very innocent, very beautiful and idealist, and she's dreaming so much. And the man has so many different layers, like the appearance that he gives to her is something else. It's like a mask, and behind that, he's quite a despicable person, actually. So he says things like, for instance, this a piece which is La Plus Dolente, which says, yeah, any girl that's good enough for a king is also fine for me, because I'm so great, I'm so everything. And she replies to that with this innocence. And I think, yeah, it's this if you select the pieces in that way, it can give an interesting thing. And then for the third volume, which we just recorded now, it's only male voices. So we chose the pieces which are in masculine in the, I mean, many of them are, but we selected some of them that are in masculine in the poetry, and it's all addressed to the woman, and it's a little bit more like an introspective aspect from the male perspective. So how can I make her happy? What did I do wrong? These kind of concerns.
Well, most members of your ensemble aren't singers, but they play instruments. And of course, the chansonnier, like most manuscripts, doesn't contain any written music for the accompanying instruments. And could you tell us which editorial or aestheticial decisions were made for the development of the accompaniment?
So one thing that we take as a basis for the ensemble is the format of one singer on the cantus, two fiddles, which play the contratenor and the tenor, and a plucked instrument. And this is something that's quite a standard, actually, today in today's performance practice, but also back then. So we have a lot of descriptions of different settings, but one that comes quite often is two fiddles, plucked instrument, and a singer. So for instance, we know that it was used at the Burgundian court. There were these two fiddle players that are very famous, the blind fiddle players, the Fernandez brothers, and they played exactly in this format with a singer which was called Paquette, a lute player, and them too. So we take this as a basis, and then depending on the pieces and on the colors that we want to show, we enrich it. So in the Leuven Chansonnier, mostly the lower parts are not texted. So when we choose to do it with more singers, there's a step to be made, which is to text the lower voices. And sometimes it works great, and sometimes less good. So we try around, and when it's convenient, we can do that. But it's not a systematical option that we have.
Okay. And how did you distribute the music between the members of the ensemble, and what did you base these decisions on? For example, the music you played, how did you decide who played what kind of music?
You mean for the instruments?
Yes.
It's so a little bit just regarding the different volumes that we have, because we have 4 volumes. And when I had to do a map of the project or of the repertory, I thought of having one CD which was a bit lighter, with the lighter music, which is the second one. And maybe quite naively, I chose to put the plucked instruments there to give this more silver colors, lighter, and yeah, to see what it brings, this plucked thing to the lightness. And yes, the third one, the one that we just did, and that's with the male protagonists introspecting. For this one, we had quite an experimental way, which was for the first time ever, we got only one fiddle, which was a little revolution for us. In order just to go out of the usual habits, because when you challenge yourself like this, then you find new solutions. We had 2 lutes, and we had 3 male singers. And for this also, I didn't choose. So the obvious options would be to choose 1 contratenor, 1 tenor, and 1 bass. And I wanted to avoid this also for the same reason of challenging ourselves, because then by this slight discomfort that it's sometimes a little bit too low for 1 tenor, or a little bit too high, then you find new colors. It's not everything settled, because sometimes the most comfortable thing, then it feels like so comfortable that you don't reach out for more expressivity and more challenges. And we had an alta cappella, which gives I think quite a new touch, and it has this very solid, very a big presence, of course, just because of the volume, but also because of the texture of the instrument. So everything is sustained, which is big contrast to the second volume with these plucked things. So I think it will give another character to the third volume compared to the second.
Okay. And are there certain aspects of the music you prioritize during the development of your own interpretation, or is there any special attention for your own instrument that we could hear in the recordings?
For the fiddle?
Yes.
Yes. Well, there is for the 4th volume that we will record in a while still, we'll also have only 1 fiddle, and the challenge that I want to address is that I would like to work more with tablatures. It means making a combination of the 2 lower voices in order to accompany, which is something that we know was done, and it's done sometimes. But yes, I think it will be interesting to explore this accompanying with only 1 fiddle.
Mm-hmm. And some of us were wondering if you use the original score to play the music, or an edited score.
So we use both. I'm like, luckily, because there's this amazing research, and there's so much things happening around the Leuven Chansonnier. There are like many editions. I mean, many comparatively with the time that we know the manuscript. It's a lot. So we use them. We always double check, because you never know what can happen. Some I do myself, and sometimes we also perform like from the facsimile. But I let that open to the musicians, so it should be their choice, because I'm not quite convinced about this bringing so much. Like, this is my way of seeing it. I know that it might seem a little bit provocative for some people, but I think that although it's an amazing experience and I love it, and I also do some concerts like from the facsimiles, and it's beautiful and it feels nice. But I think that because we didn't grow up with this culture of reading this notation, sometimes it makes another barrier, and then actually this nice feeling that you get from reading is so satisfactory that you are satisfied with this already, and then you don't push yourself to go beyond the notation. And another reason why I'm not convinced of working only with facsimile is because the notation is a main aspect of early music studying now in the last dozens of years. And I think we should shift to a way where memory is more important than notation. So when you memorize something, it's a completely different experience. And in a way, I think it's way more authentic, because you can see that this manuscript, for instance, doesn't have so many, correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't have so many signs of use. So it's an object, and it's so small, you know, you cannot perform 3 persons from it. And we know that memory was way more developed than today. And for me, it's more convincing because it makes you internalize things, and you cannot remember things that you don't completely understand or identify to. So once again, we are brought back a bit to the work of an actor. And yes, if you learn something by memory, like a role, like an acting role, then you have another approach. And this is something that's more interesting for me than the actual reading from the notation.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to use this interview as an introduction for our students to listen to the recording of the Leuven Chansonnier. How would you recommend them listen to it, or what's your own favorite place to listen to music?
Well, that's an interesting question. I always wonder how people perceive this. I think a good way is not to listen to the whole thing in one go, but maybe select some 3-4 pieces, listen to them, and another day listen to something else. And of course, you have to be ready for another format of pieces than what you're used to because of these repetitions. And yeah, I'm so subjective, you know, I cannot put myself in the place of someone listening to it the first time. But 2 of my favorite tracks are J'ai des semblants, which I think has a very nice drive, and it has this dark color that I like about it. And then another one is Henri Philippe. So Henri Philippe is a very, very special piece. It's a jealousy piece. It's also very interesting to see it. It's like another hand that put it in the manuscript at the end of it, and it's, when you look at it, it's not as neat and beautiful as the rest. It's a bit like put on the paper, like with a gesture. I don't know. I see this quite a strong moment behind it, and it names this man by his name, and then it says something like, "You seemed so great. You pretended to be, but I'm so disappointed, and I don't show anything to anyone, but I'm extremely hurt, and I cry day and night, and you are so bad." And yeah, she says, "You make me wear the green color, so the color of jealousy." And I have this very poetic image in my head of this 15th century woman just being extremely angry and throwing that on the paper in an unfashionable way, and just for herself, just out of pure anger and jealousy. And yeah, we try to show that in the music. It's a bit hectic, it's a bit rough, but yeah, I have a special attachment to this piece.
I was going to ask what your favorite chanson is, but you already answered that, so that's good. You said you mainly focus on medieval and Renaissance music, but what other kind of music do you listen to if it's not medieval or Renaissance music?
So I try my best to listen a little bit to everything. I'm a happy consumer of Baroque music, although I don't play it myself. Well, I grew up a little bit disconnected from anything but Russian romantic music and medieval music. So because we were so much into it and we didn't listen to anything else. So when I was 20 something, I went to study and I discovered the other things. So I try to I'm still in the process of making myself a little bit more cultured in other, but I love it. My daughter is a fan of Madonna, and now I listen to Madonna.
And then I think we've come to our last question for you, and it is, are there any big projects in the future, either with the Sollazzo Ensemble or for you as a soloist, or any other type of project?
I have different things, and we'll have to see how we recover from the pandemic. But there is something which is very exciting for me coming in 2022, which is a project with a bigger cast than usual. Will be nearly 20 musicians on stage, and this gives. It's not just because of because it's nice, but it's because I want to explore the group music, the bigger group dynamic in this repertory. Because very often we have the image that medieval music should be like maybe one fiddle player, one singer, or a small group, 5, 6, and this is often true. But there is a lot of music that was practiced in bigger groups, and it gives this completely different dynamic. It gives this challenge also of how if you have such a big group, how to make it so that everyone feels like a soloist still, because it's still there's space for different characters and different ways of singing and of approaching music. And I want to see how can we do it with this approach of having actor attitude when we perform this music, how that's going to be with a bigger group. So this is going to be called Tout ce que l'on trouve sous le ciel, everything you find under the sky. And it's going to be just many people with the best music. So I'm really excited about that. And then we have the last volume of Leuven, which is going to be created now during this year. And I'm really looking forward, because as I told you, I thought for the first volume, I was convinced I chose the best music, and then for each volume, I was extremely happy by discovering these other things that I didn't choose. So it makes me doubt about my my way of choosing music, but also it's an amazing feeling to discover these things, and then I'm extremely curious to see what happened with the last one.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll be looking out for your project, and we hope we'll be able to hear you in Belgium soon. And then I'd just like to thank you on behalf of the Musicology department at the University of Leuven. And I also had to give Professor Dr. Barnes regards to you.
Oh, nice. Thank you.
Yes. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.